This is such a common thing in product. People want to take something cheap and make it look really expensive.
Yeah, we've lit this shoot so far with pretty much 2 lights.
We're just basically running the smoke and we're gonna run it right over the coffee beans right as we pull the camera back.
It's just like playing Call of Duty, right?
Oh, we got something! Hey, wait, that wasn't the worst ever.
That wasn't the worst ever. Filmmaking 101.
All right, Brandon, this is new. We're not in the studio. I have a bag of coffee in my hands. What are we doing?
Well, today we're here to meet Nate Fu, the owner of Miss Robot, and he is a product cinematographer who specializes in motion control cinematography.
Yeah, and of course, we have the 1200D with us because rather than walking you through all the little details about the 1200D, we'd rather show you how a professional cinematographer like him puts it into practice.
We're gonna use the 1200D and all of that punch to really take advantage of it for shooting very specific things like high speed, something that's really dark like these coffee beans, and some macro cinematography, which takes up a lot of light.
There's a lot of practices that a real professional product cinematographer uses that can be applied into the indie style filmmaking. Because obviously, we're gonna be talking about camera movement, we're gonna be talking about where you place your light, every little thing that a professional does that just takes a little bit of know-how to make work with like a DSLR and a one light system.
Hey, sounds good. Sounds like the perfect day for using the 1200D Pro. Let's get to it.
Welcome.
Hey Nate, how you doing?
Doing good, welcome.
Let's go see the studio.
Yeah.
And then over here, it looks like we have the most organized studio I have ever seen. Everything is on nice IKEA shelves. Everything is like in its own little container and all these little stickers. So it begs the question, why does the cinematographer in your line of work need to have all these tools at your disposal, and why do you need to keep them this organized in this fashion?
I think I really like to, flow state is pretty important for me. And when you're trying to make something and you can't find what you want, it can make you really frustrated. Here's the odd bin. This is just plastic trash. You know, when you
This is from the IKEA shelf.
From IKEA,
yeah.
This is literally from IKEA. But then you kind of find oh, one day you need to hold up a little corner. So I kind of just take the trash of stuff and I kind of collect. You never know.
So we talked a lot about your studio, and your studio is amazing, but ultimately we came here for you. So tell us a little bit more about yourself, why you got into product cinematography, a little about your background.
I was really drawn to the 3D feel of it, or almost the digital feel of it.
Mm-hmm.
Cinematography was in the past a lot about creating our own perspective, and now it was we have all this generative visual language, computer visual language or internet visual language, and user interface and UX and UI, right, that are driving the visual language. Mm-hmm. It makes you think a little bit more like a graphic designer. It feels like you're composing a frame digitally, you're nudging things, you're centering them, and you're oh, let's do it again, but let's get a little more center aligned. And almost how you're thinking about web and graphic design, much more than cinematography.
Ultimately, I want to ask you about how product cinematography can still tell a story. And for that, I have this. I've been holding it the entire time. And I want to hand this off to you and ask you, how do you think we should tell the story about a coffee grinder?
There's not a character arc.
Exactly.
Right, in a grinder. We're not gonna follow a character, we're not gonna fall in love. So I think it's more about tone. What does this place feel like if I were there? We can think about a coffee grinder in the morning on your countertop, and the sun kind of hits it.
So instead of following the character arc of coffee, it's basically about setting a tone using all our elements to evoke an emotion out of the viewer.
I know there's this hero shot where we see the product. This might be at the end of the video, it could be at the beginning, and there's a reveal. And I know that there are these features they want to show off. There's a dial, there is a grind setting, there is a hopper, there's a couple different features they want to show off because they're proud that they made it this way and they thought about how the users might use it. And then there's this texture, the care that was put into making this, the materials that they chose, and they want to show that off. So I kind of break it down into thinking of the product here as a whole, some of it's how we might show off its features, and the textures involved.
That brings into question, today is your playground. How are you going to show off the texture of these coffee beans? It's okay, it's still wrapped in plastic. No worries.
Okay, so this is challenging. If I had to shoot this, oh, this is tricky. This is such a common thing in product. Mm-hmm. People want to take something cheap and make it look really expensive.
Yeah.
And I think this is tricky. Yeah. It's doable. It would be interesting. Dude, honestly, I just need to see this on camera real quick.
First, you rough in the shot, like we did here. We can see that it's roughly center. What's your next step in the process?
Either I'll start building the moves, I'll start designing the movements, and then we're gonna kind of feel it. Next step is like figure out the tone of it. Like what does this thing feel like? Where are we at?
I love it. If you don't realize what this is, everyone, he basically mounted a 20 by solid to a hoist. Is controlling it with a Mathellini. This is beautiful. I love it.
Stuck this on a chain and I just bought this on like McMaster car and it just bought a chain for it.
Sometimes you just need the simplest solution. You don't need to get big drapes or big robotic curtains that are gonna cost you thousands of dollars. Just get a 20 by solid and just roll it down.
Let's just rough in some stuff.
Yeah, we're gonna start by roughing in the light a little bit, just so we can kind of start getting a feel for what we're creating. And here we have a 300x in a spotlight mount. Try and get some more of those warmer tones in here first and give us that flexibility if we want to keep it warm or if we need to cool it down.
Yeah, we're just gonna cut some light, make some sunlight vibes.
Should feel like it's coming through like a window, right?
Sure, yeah. I'm gonna rough this in, see if it looks decent. Like, imagine there was like some foliage on like a piece of it. Let's see.
That's where you feel like this is sunlight coming in through a window because it's casting some shadows on some leaves off some trees. So you're at 3,800 Kelvin right now. This is at 37. So right now we're white.
Yeah, I'm just kind of matching tones. The way I want to use this 1200 is I want to use it as if it's the sky. And I want to like play it a little blue even.
Yeah, so we can basically create a nice ambient fill by keeping this warmer, making it feel like a warm sunlight, and then the 1200D Pro can be basically the light that you get after it comes in through the awning, has bounced off a bunch of things, a little cooler, just like an overcast sky.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next challenge, arguably the bigger challenge than setting up the frame, is how to set this up without touching the branch or the robot.
Let me try something. My gut, like, and this is actually something I probably could only do with the 1200, is like, you're gonna lose so much light.
So we're double breaking the light right now, and basically when you're double breaking, you want to start out with a smaller diffuse source closer to your unit, and then diffuse it into a larger source.
I'm gonna center it up, so I'm gonna arc over, and then it looks like we need to be just a hair over. I'm gonna take this little guy. I'm just gonna make 2 marks. It's weird, it's like, you're like nudging pixels. You know, it's kind of like what I was saying with graphic design.
Yeah.
You just kind of like...
Because you can't afford to be that precise. It's not like on a tripod where you're like, oh, you panned a little too far.
Can I show them something that I think is actually quite cool?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna loop it, robot moves, and I'm gonna roll it, and I'm just gonna change the lighting as we go. What I'm basically gonna do is give them different looks.
So like 100, 80,
this is
60.
100,
yeah.
And it's just looping. And so the faster I can change this, I can give them like a pile of new looks. So this is the 100 look. I'm gonna give them the high contrast look. And then I'm gonna give them the 20% look.
From this way, you can just cycle through everything in pretty much like 2 minutes.
Camera cuts. Oops, wrong cut. Not the rolling button. That's how I would probably use the cycle, because then I don't have to argue about which exposure. I just
did all of them.
Like, imagine all that time earlier we were trying to figure out what's the right level.
Yeah.
I could have ignored all of that. I'm so used to doing that
Yeah.
because I'm used to using HMIs or just used to using lights I can't change easily.
Yeah.
I'm learning how to use this light as we go. You know?
It didn't occur to you that you could just be like, oh, I could just do 6 different looks right now in 2 minutes.
Exactly. And so then once I realized that, then let's just loop it and get all 6. And then we wouldn't even have had the discussion about which one to pick.
Yeah.
We just roll all 5, you know?
Fix it in post is what he's saying. Get it off my plate. Once it's out of the studio, I don't have to worry about it.
Yep. Robot moves in 3, 2, 1, action. Cool.
Here we go. Cut.
We could get the grind on another shot. Let's cut.
Filmmaking.
Yeah, we don't need the grind. You set that up and we'll work on the next shot. I mean, we are up here. We could do the top-down one, pushing in with the beans falling in now. Go back to the beginning of our shot list.
So how slow do we want it?
120.
Okay.
So basically, because we're at 160 frames per second instead of 120, that's, what is that? A little over 5. That's 6 times as fast. So it just means 6 times less light. roughly 2 2/3 stops, 2.5 stops of light that we need to gain back. But that means if we basically open up to, theoretically, from 14, that's 2/3 to 11, then to 8, and then to 5.6.
That's a 5.6?
That's 5.6. I mean, that's mathematically what it's supposed to be.
Oh, wait, hold on. This is a fun lesson. Mathematically correct.
Exactly,
but
it's not always perfect.
when you shoot macro, you have an exposure compensation.
Oh,
so
yeah.
At 10 inches, I'm losing, not that much, I'm losing just a half stop.
Okay.
But at 7 inches, I'm losing a stop and a third.
Because as you're moving closer, basically the whole element system is moving forward and is closing your actual amount of available light.
So I just ignore gaffers all the time. And I'm just looking at the monitor. I don't care because.
As long as it looks right to you.
Okay, and then I feel like it's hot on the table.
Yeah, on the bottom corner.
Yeah, just an exposure thing, or do we want to cut the bottom of that?
I think you probably do need a net because you need more.
Oh, no net. We're gonna use organic nets.
Oh, we're gonna
those.
use the branches.
No nets like that. No, nets are not real. Forget that.
Nets are not real.
But you see, like what's happening
Yeah, I know
here?
you mean.
Like
it's breaking
like,
it up so that it's actually absorbing some of that light.
Yeah,
and it's allowing us to focus the same amount of output here.
You know, just put some beans in all the hot areas. The beans are lower exposure. You know. How are we thinking about this dropping mechanism right now?
Are enough beans going to come out at once?
That's what we're wondering. So the beans are going through here. It looks like a narrower chute so that I could drop it into the funnel, like with a cup.
Should I roll it? Rolling. Camera cuts. Robot is safe. Playback's coming up.
Did we do it? Let's see. What's the next thing we want to get?
The next thing we want to do is this shot where we're like on a bed of coffee. We're using the macro lens to really scrape the bed, and then we want steam to come underneath it, as if like coffee is being roasted.
Okay. And we're not just any macro lens, just so we can get that great perspective, we're using a probe lens, right?
We're using a probe lens, and the movement should be simple enough where you get to take the reins for this one.
What? I don't know if I'm ready for that, but let's try, I guess. It's just like playing Call of Duty, right?
All right, so we're gonna use a probe lens on this one. A lot of you guys know this lens is f14, T14. Pretty tricky to light with, so we're definitely gonna probably be, if we're gonna do slow motion and T14, I'm probably gonna remove the light and just shoot the direct 1200 at it. I think that's how much light we're gonna need.
So here's what we really came here today for. Earlier we talked about shooting at T14 and getting all the light we needed and then shooting things in slow-mo. Here we are with the macro Laowa probe lens, so we know this one is T14, so that's why we needed so much light. That's why we needed the 1200D today. We've lit this shoot so far with pretty much 2 lights, so let's see what we can do. So the next question is, why did we decide to backlight the coffee beans?
Whenever you're really close up, you wanna see all the textures and the little details in the textures, and backlight really kind of creates that contrast to get all the textures, and we're so close up, we're so macro, so this is all texture.
Let's call it a smoking gun.
A smoking gun.
Yeah.
Got
You
it.
can also use this to make the cocktail.
Okay, so you're using a smoking gun.
We're just basically running the smoke, and we're gonna run it right over the coffee beans right as we pull the camera back. The probe is like one of the hardest things to do because it can hit things really fast. Basically, what you're gonna take this keyframe, and we're gonna copy and paste it, maybe 4 seconds. Okay, so that's 4 feet 6 inches.
Oh, okay.
So why don't we do like a foot?
Okay.
We're gonna test this.
What do you usually say? Robot moves in 3, 2, 1, action. It's pretty dope. Look at this high level of skill. I moved a line straight.
Does this help like having a background in editing? Like it's basically programming keyframes from one to the other.
I mean, pretty much. It looks like you would edit things in After Effects. Like you're keyframing, you're adjusting your Bezier, and then the only thing is here, when you're doing your moves in 3D space, you have to adjust your arcs and stuff like that. But that's the software does that a lot for you with the target tool and then just the focus offset. So ultimately, while you could mess anything up, it is a fairly straightforward process that just takes some time and effort to learn.
Yeah, let's have Brandon roll it too.
Okay, we're gonna roll.
And go ahead.
Okay, robot moves in 3, 2, 1, action.
I mean, this is the mythical thing that people are trying to get often, you know, is like.
Now, would it look just as good slower, or what do you say to that?
It looks more expensive. It looks like you're in another world. So everything you do to make it not feel real,
Yeah.
you know, it just takes you to another place.
This is the real
Oh,
thing,
okay.
bro.
This is the real thing?
This is the real
Oh,
thing.
no. This is a lot of pressure. Okay. Go ahead. Okay, robot moves in 3, 2, 1, action. Cool. Well, I'm glad that we were able to end on that shot. It was my personal favorite of the 3 because I did it single-handedly. No one else helped at all. But in all seriousness, we pulled off some 3 really cool shots today. But us being here.
That's a wrap. We're done.
Now it's time to clean up though, so I gotta bounce. So Nate, I have one last question for you. We covered a lot of high-end concepts today. We dealt with a lot of high-end tools, some expensive camera robots, some expensive cameras, but ultimately, what can all the indie filmmakers take away from the lessons that we talked about today and use it and put it to use in their own studios and their own shoots?
I think the takeaway is you don't have to know the look before you start. If you can dial and move and change things as you go, you can like feel into the shot. And your tools can even affect your concept, and your process can affect the end result. And so if you just let yourself stay loose, change a bunch of settings, dim up and down, just explore as you go, you'll discover something you weren't planning on. And that's, in my opinion, like the best stuff.
Yeah, because we talked about that a little bit, right? Not everything has to be pre-planned. Everything for you starts out as just a rough draft on set, change some settings and see what happens.
Yeah, I think don't be afraid to not know where you're shooting. Turn on a camera, it can look bad, feel it out, hold it handheld, just move the light around, pan, just try things. And I think like the more you try things, the more accidents will happen, the more discovery you'll be, and the reality is nobody really knows what they want until they see it. So start with a rough draft, try it, change it, and build towards your final image.
Well, thank you for teaching us so much about product cinematography, and I hope you had a fun time getting to use the Lightstorm 1200D Pro. Where can people find you on social media and learn a little bit more about Miss Robot and what you do?
Well, we're based in LA, so you guys can just come by, search us on Google, we'll be there. And on social media, we're Miss_Robot.
Okay, you can see a lot of cool stuff there. They have an amazing library of product cinematography, so definitely check them out and get inspired. Thanks for tuning in again, and we'll see you later. Ultimately, we didn't do any complex moves, and he doesn't trust me quite yet, which I get. It's his baby. I'm moving things in a straight line, so hopefully I can't mess up.